Mr. Loo, go tell your Singaporeans that stop finger pointing at JB about crime. You also got your fair share, what? Well, this is what a Malaysian told me. And I thought it was very interesting when I look at the evidence that was put forward to me. Let's watch on, shall we? Well, a few days ago, I had the privilege of being interviewed by a Malaysian journalist who wanted to find out about my decision-making process about retiring in Malaysia, Johor Bahru, and all the exciting things I talk about online. She wanted to find out more. So she's based in Malaysia, and as we spoke on, and she asked me what is the top concern of Singaporeans about retiring JB since there's so many good things that Mr. Loo talked about. I said, oh, wow, the two biggest issue that we have is number one, traffic jam, right? But that's a problem I think is a short-term problem, and over time it will be solved. But I think the bigger problem that I don't think will be solved in the short run will be about crime rate of Johor Bahru. And as we spoke on, I say that, wow, Johor Bahru, on the news, there's so much about people stealing things from cars, broken windows about cars, and some robberies and theft and things like that. She said, Mr. Loo, as a journalist, as I look at the news, I don't think Singapore has less news than Johor Bahru. Do you know that? I said, how can that be? I said, go watch it yourself. Go Google yourself and see. Well, you know what? As I Google and search, it's true, no? Singapore crime is not that low. It's just that whenever Johor Bahru has a crime, it just flash out, in the media. And somehow when Singapore has crime, people don't look much about it, right? So finger pointing seems to be a problem. But let's watch on and see whether that's true, shall we? As we spoke, it's true. Just recently, there is a serious robbery case of two Malaysian men charged over armed gang robbery in King Albert Park in Singapore, over $4.3 million. I'm not so sure in Malaysia you can steal $4.3 million that easily or rob $4.3 million that easily. But this happened in Singapore, incidentally by Malaysian, right? So the news is that a group of men armed themselves with parangs and baseball bats to rob 11 people of cash and valuables worth $4.3 million in total in a King Albert Park house on April the 18th. Wow, this is quite a big news, right? Parangs and baseball bat, rob 11 people worth $4.3 million. This 11 people, damn rich, man, got $4.3 million, which means that each person has about $400,000 to rob. Have you thought of it? The King Albert Park people really rich, right? But anyway, the key thing is that, this is quite serious, right? In Singapore, parangs and baseball bat, almost never heard before. These guys ran away to Malaysia, and fortunately, with the close collaboration of Singapore police and the Malaysian police, these two criminals were being apprehended and handed over back to Singapore police. And I think they'll be having the time of their life, being whipped and caned and in Changi prison. That got me to think about, right, this kind of thing actually happened in Singapore. This is unheard of, right? As I search on, as claimed by the journalist, looks like this is not the only case in Singapore. So there's a case of Singapore man arrested over allegedly used a pair of scissors to rob victims of $5,000 in Kembangan. Well, just one pair of scissors can rob $5,000, okay? The other one is a boy, 15 years old, arrested after allegedly attempting to rob Pasir Ris steam bun with a knife. So it looks like actually Singapore got quite a few high-profile robberies, right? Maybe the profile ain't that high because the things they use are parangs, baseball bat, scissors, knives, and maybe in Malaysia they use guns or things like that, right? I don't know. Maybe the difference is not the frequency. The frequency is the weapon use. So we still have more. As I search on, there were 6 Bangladeshi nationals aged between 30th and 39, so arrested somewhere in mid of February over a gang robbery along Nico Highway. So a 38-year-old victim was being assaulted and robbed by the group of 6 at about 8 p.m. Right, they lost the guy lost a handphone and cash, about $860. And that again is a robbery in Singapore. It's not that rare in Singapore, apparently. Another one, right? Man allegedly hide overnight in Bedok coffee shop, steal cash register, cash and check amounting to 14,000. Well, one coffee shop has $14,000 of valuables. I didn't know that as well. Okay. So much about serious armed robberies and thefts. There are also some petty thefts as well. even along our corridors, one man searched for items left over HDB flat, found himself lucky at the expense of a new mother, right? So new mother has actually found his confinement meals that were hung outside the house being stolen, right? And furthermore, this thief has also stolen a parcel from her. These are petty thefts, not that big. I think these kind of petty thefts happen all over Singapore, and I'm sure they happen a lot in Malaysia as well. But the point I'm driving home is this: we're not saying that Johor crime is lesser. Obviously not, right? We think that Johor crime is probably higher or more, but stop thinking that Johor Bahru is much more dangerous than Singapore, as we see all these news coming up, right? Now, of course, we see that, wow, but Johor Bahru is so dangerous, so dangerous. It probably is, but according to the Malaysian journalists, stop thinking that our home Singapore is much safer than Johor Bahru as you look at all this news, right? So I think we all know the high-profile cases of theft and robberies also in Malaysia. But as we look at Singapore, clearly, we do have our fair share as well. So maybe our finger pointing needs to be more careful. I think the key thing that I also think about is that when we are in Malaysia, we naturally, our self-precaution guard goes up, right? We think that there is a chance that robbery and thefts could happen, and we won't let our guard down. We increase our care about our valuables and things like that, and maybe even avoid going to certain places. But in Singapore, most of us let our guard down. We walk in the night, nobody cares. We leave our door, unlocked, sometimes nobody cares. We leave our things on the table and go and order food and things like that, nobody cares. But things can happen, right? There's American tourists surprised that we leave our things uncared for in the public, right? American tourist said that he posted a picture of an unattended bicycle parked against a pillar at Lau Pa Sat. He says that the ultimate Singapore culture shock, a $15,000 bicycle is left unattended, wrote the American tourist, right? So while this also shows that Singapore is generally safe, this also shows that Singaporeans don't give a darn. And that's probably our problem, because low crime doesn't mean no crime. By doing this, we encourage crime sometimes to happen, right? By the way, I want to take this chance to say that looks like the Malaysian police, if they want, they are actually very efficient. You notice that? The King Albert Park police were caught in Malaysia. They weren't caught in Singapore, right? They were caught in Malaysia. So this causes to think what happened, why the Singapore police were not able to catch them while they're still in Singapore, but we only rely on the Malaysian police to catch them. Now, I'm not saying that Singapore police is inefficient, but maybe the geographical boundary of Singapore is just too small. Before the police could organize an operation, the Malaysian has actually left the country, right? So from King Albert Park to Woodlands is actually quite near. They rob, they run, in 10 minutes, they are 15 minutes. If there are no traffic jam, they are out of Singapore. So in Singapore, if there's going to be crime, it's probably more difficult to catch if the robbers escape fast, right? During the time of Mas Salamat, the terrorist, he also managed to escape Singapore in a flotation device, apparently swim across the causeway, and he was caught by the Malaysian police as well. So actually, while we look at Malaysia, especially Johor and things like that, we tend to look at their police, what they're doing. The truth of the matter is that Malaysian police, if they want, okay, there's almost no escape, right? So many of our criminals and high-profile ones were all caught by Malaysian police. So we shouldn't look at this Malaysian police with an eye of question, right? They are very efficient if we need their help, right? Every time we need their help, they seem to be able to get their act together. And I was also pointed out by the journalists, how are we doing in scams? The point I think that was driving at me is that Singapore may have our own fair share of robberies, as well as what we see in Johor Bahru. We don't know who is higher, who is lower, probably JB, but our share is not low as well. In terms of scam, we're like way higher, right? Very few countries can beat us in scam. In a global study, Singapore ranked the highest in terms of losses per victim to scams. Scam victims in Singapore lost the most money on average, which is about close to $5,000 to $6,000 Singapore dollar, followed by Switzerland and Austria. This is not something that we want to be champion about. So while we point fingers at other people, we are not doing that well, towards crime in specific areas either. And the number of reported scam cases in Singapore has increased tremendously. So what is the bottom line? Number one, stop thinking that Singapore is so safe compared to JB, right? It is probably safer, but it ain't very safe. As you can see, we do have high profile crimes as well. Okay. And also, in specific areas, we are even champion globally, not even regionally. So I think we got to be fair to the Malaysian as well. We ain't that good either. Second is that I think this is a warning to everybody, be in Singapore and Malaysia, Singaporeans, whether you are in Singapore or outside Singapore, please be on our guard, especially towards Singaporeans who are always, so mother hen by the wonderful Singapore security and police. When you go overseas, you'll be prime target because you let your hair down, you let your guard down, as you've gotten used to the Singapore security system. They're gonna put you in a lot of risk, right? So I really appreciate the discussion I have with the Malaysian journalists on this, and I certainly will hope that Singaporeans we would do some self-reflection as well. Anyway, this is not a criticism of ourselves and not a criticism towards Johor Bahru in any way. I certainly hope that we take all the precautions we need to make ourselves and our lives more protected, whether in Singapore, in Malaysia, or in JB, or in the rest of the world. And I'll see you in a day or two. Bye-bye.